All right, so I just finished doing a custom build on my gauge cluster, and I'm here testing the tachometers to make sure that everything is functioning correctly as far as the RPMs, because those are really important for a manual to be able to shift at the right RPM, or at least like hear what's going on at the right RPM. So I'm going to give it a little bit of gas and see what level it comes up to, and watch it as it goes up to see if it's corresponding to the level that's on the screen here on the tacno gauge, and that seems about right. So I'm really happy with that. Yeah, so that seems about right. If you notice here, what I have the Focus ST background, the tachometer readings with the Focus SE needle gauges. The Focus ST needle gauges on the outside, and the Focus SE needle gauges on the inside. However, I have the Focus ST gauge indicators on the back side of this, and also swapped out for the Focus SE display and not the Focus ST display for the sleeper build. But that's going to do it. I'll give you a little bit of synopsis on what I did to get to this, but it's essentially having to take apart a lot of, well, basically taking apart the gauge cluster and swapping stuff over, and then going in here and checking to make sure that it's right. If you see here in the last video I did, I had like a couple thousand more miles. The gauge cluster itself, not this screen here, LCD screen, the gauge cluster itself contains the internal data for your mileage. So keep that in mind when you want to do the switch. Anyway, let's get on with the video. Alright, so welcome back to Focus Hands, and in this episode I'm going to be showing you how to rebuild the gauge cluster that I took apart in off camera, but I gave you a little bit of a update at the beginning of a couple of videos back, or whenever I put that in the intro. So like I said, in this episode we're going to be rebuilding this gauge cluster console. And the cool thing about this gauge cluster is you can easily remove the backings, like a little black backing that goes on the circuitry board itself. These little tabs here, so there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. These tabs, you do that, you move these tabs out, and you could essentially get this board up and out of here. Now, there is a little trick to this to get it out. You will need to, let me just get it out here just to show you. We can build it back up together. What am I stuck on? This one's still getting caught. There we go. All right, so with it all out now, and it's also attached, so be mindful of that. And it's attached over here. So I'm going to unlock it so that we can build it up together. I'm going to flip this little gate up, and then we're going to remove the flat cable from its housing, like so. And this allows the circuitry board to separate from the LCD screen. All right, so here you're bare. This is the bare circuitry board, which stores the data for your car's internal mileage. I know mileage is stored in multiple locations, but it isn't the LCD screen that stores that data. Like I said a couple videos ago, it is this thing that has the data somewhere stored. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to rebuild this thing back up. Say that you wanted to do a couple of switching on your instrument or whatever. So we're going to build back up on this. So let's set this aside for a second and go get some gloves on. Stay focused. All right, so I got the gloves on, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this to the side here because I'm not yet ready to work with that. I want to turn my attention to the LCD screen and this backing that it sits on for now. And what I care about this, well, here's where the indicators go for the car. And I want my miles per hour indicator is going to be on the right. I think that's pretty customary for American cars. I don't know about the European models. And then you'd have your tachometer reading, and RPMs would go on the left. And then if you cared about knowing if you had a full tank or empty tank or engine temperature, this is going to go in the middle. And there are little dials that are here that allow you to align this so you can get it as close to perfect as possible, and it clicks in the center. You want to wear gloves with this because these indicators tops they can get oily really quick and leave a lot of fingerprints, and you'll be able to see that when the light shines through this little surface. And on this, I'll bring it closer, you can see that what I'm talking about here. It'll shine through and show your fingerprints, so be mindful of that. All right, so the next thing we're going to need to do is lift this LCD screen up and off. We need to take these tabs here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 on the tabs. I can zoom in so you get a little bit better view. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to lift this LCD screen out of its housing very carefully and set it to the side. All right, so there should be 4 of these little brass-like, copper-like, I don't even know what you call these. This is little metal pieces, and these are important. I think these make contact with the LCD screen on the bottom. You just want to slide those in place once you get the screen and the circuitry board back together. So for now, those are going to be slid over out of the way. Okay, so what we're going to do now is take our newly built top screen part for viewership. We are going to reconnect it with the LCD screen or the circuitry board. And for that, all you do is line it up. Make sure you don't mess up any of these needles, so don't press it on. There are little needles right here, and you want to be very careful not to bend those, otherwise you'll have to get a new circuitry board. Let me just get this lined up, flicked it off. There we go. This flat cable goes on the inside, FYI. And there we go for that. You just click it into place. Snaps in on the 4, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Snaps into place. Now we're going to get the backing for this. Stay focused. Another cool thing that I wanted to point out is the sounds that the car makes is coming from right here. I wonder if you could change this out to make it have different sounds, but here's your back plate. We're gonna put this down, and this just sits in here. Nothing special, which I found was a little weird. Just sits in here. It doesn't really do much. We're gonna make sure that it's sitting nice. So there's your speaker. Line that up. It's still not sitting correctly. There we go. All right, so how you verify that is you look at the back, and your little circuitry connection moves all the way through the back plate. All right, so how do you lock this in place? Well, you're gonna need your gauge needles, and this is what I wanted to point out from earlier. In order to get the circuitry board off, you have to remove the gauge needles. And these just go on like they came off. You just pull them out, you pull them off. You're just gonna push them on very carefully, like so, till they snap in, just like that. And then you'll line it up very carefully, snap it in. Same thing for the fuel and engine temp. Stay focused. All right, so at this point you might be wondering, how do you set this? Because it's going to be out of sync when you go to put it back in the car. And there's one real way to do this, and this is using ForeScan, which you will kind of get into that in a later video. But there's another way a long time ago I used to use, and it is actually repositioning. It has tension on the tachometer itself. So I'm going to put this all the way back, rotate it to make sure it goes all the way to the end over here. So this is my maximum for this gauge cluster. So I'm going to go all the way back now and reset it. So here, let's go all the way back. So I want it to be somewhere right here. Set my maximum. All right. This is just ballpark. You're gonna have to use the ForeScan and recalibrate the gauge cluster in order for this to work right. Just FYI, but I'm just getting it set where I think it should be. It's the highest it could go. I'm going to. So you don't want that to be sitting that low. So you come back over here, pull this down. And I think I like that. All right, for this, so that one's there. I want that to be the max. It's max fuel. And you definitely don't want this to be here, which would be crazy. All right, so we got that set. That took longer than I wanted it to. So now you have these little brass looking fittings. You'll drop these into the four corners, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there'll be little small holes. You drop them in that hole right there. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so now those, and they don't have to be in any real orientation. Just drop them in there. And now we'll take our LCD screen and we'll flip it back. And on those tabs that we did earlier, there are 2 tabs indicators or dial holes, 1 and 2. You want to line those up with the dial wings on the unit itself. And you just give it a light little press, and these will snap in place, like so. Give it a little test. All right, so the next thing you want to do, without destroying your cable, is pull that cable out. Like so. And you want to fish that cable back into its slot. And there's something you need to see on the cable. I'm gonna bring you all the way in. You see those little indicator tabs? Let me see if I can get the camera adjusted right. So right here, you want the cable to sit above this little plastic piece that I'm touching, and right here and here. You want it to sit above that. And that's how you know you got it in far enough. Once you've done that and you verify that it's above it, this little gate here, you can flip this little gate down and that will lock it in place. You don't have to press too hard, but just enough to lock it in place. All right, so with that out of the way, you can go and put this back in. So there's two tabs here on the plastic housing that you need to line this up with, and it's the middle for the LCD screen. If your LCD screen ever breaks, this is how you would remove and put back to fix it. There are 2 bolts that go here. They're T10 screws that I need to go find in order to continue, so stay tuned. All right, so here are the screws. Like I said, they're T10, and interestingly enough, Ford only put 2 of these in here, 1 and 2, but there's 4 holes in which these screws would fit in. Now, you might be thinking it's gonna flop around. It actually doesn't. So Ford actually got away with only using 2 screws and saved a little bit of money. So we'll drop these in place. One goes right here. And like so. All right, so that's it for the T10. Now we're almost home. It's a home stretch, but still be careful because this could fall out, because this back piece, like you see, that back piece is only just having it sit in the case. It's not really providing any extra protection to lock it in place. All right, so here's where it gets interesting. So you have 1, 2, and 3 pieces that all need to fit together in order for this to go back in. On this piece here, the piece that kind of gives you the wave look visual, I guess, protects the internal components from getting touched and stuff. There has like this little indentation on the side, so that means something. It's on both sides, and that corresponds with this here. So what you want to do is you want to line these up. For starters, when you put this down, this will fit on like so. And this doesn't snap in either, so be mindful of that. There's a little tab that it sits on top of, and that's how you know it goes in place. The little white piece right there, that black part sits right between it, and that's how you know that it's lined up. So this piece here, folds like that. It sits right on top of that. And the cool thing about this is it has little little tabs here that slide right over the top of this clear piece, even right there. So you just fit it over the top, and you'll know once you do it. And it just locks in place. All right. So look at those two pieces I was talking about earlier. Okay. So now that those are in, now here's where it's going to come into play. Those two pieces need to slide on top or in the middle of this little slant piece here of plastic. Otherwise, you won't be able to get it on. You'll struggle. So let's see if I got it good enough to fit on. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna check it from this side. All right, so that slid in like so. I'm gonna go back over here to this side and check it to make sure it's sliding in, and it did. So now we're just gonna push it in very carefully until it goes over the clips on all sides, even here, right here, here, and here. And we'll go over and check all of them. So there's a clip here, clip here, clip here, clip here. There's a clip here, two clips here, 1 and 2, and a clip here. You need to get all of those off if you're going to be removing the unit, and all of these back on if you're putting the unit back together. All right, so with that, you've completed the reassembly of the gauge cluster. I mean, this shows you how to change out the circuit board. It shows you how to replace the gauge indicators. It shows you how to put back in the gauge needles. Shows you how to take out and reinstall the LCD screen. This video actually gives you a lot of info for how to do this yourself. The next part of it that I'll do in a later video, and I might get some help from Navi Upgrades, is to show you how to recalibrate your speedometer and gauge cluster to show the correct speeds, because it's definitely going to be out of sync. It's going to need to be recalibrated through, I believe, ForeScan, and or you can take it to your local dealership. The speedometer that shows up as a digital display, that's going to be fine. Anything with a gauge needle is going to be off. So you can still drive the car by looking at your display speed, but these are going to be off. And especially if you drive manual, you definitely want to get this one at least remotely close to the actual reading, because it kind of affects your ability to shift and whatnot. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully that helps any of you that have these problems, and you're able to go out and fix it, or at least get this part done yourself. And then like I said, thus go to a shop or pull out your ForeScan and recalibrate your speedometer yourself. Well, with that said, this is Focus Hands. Don't forget to leave me a comment down in the comment section, a like, a dislike. You know, do what you got to do, and I'll try to mold off of that. But with that said, Focus Hands, signing off. Peace out.